Americans for Fair Taxation presents the Weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, president of Americans for Fair Taxation, and recorded by Bob Paxton, a volunteer with the Florida FAIRtax Educational Association. And now, this week's Chairman's Report.
Hello, I'm Bob Paxton with the AFFT Chairman's Report for Friday, November 7th, 2025. Senator Cotton's OPT FAIRtax Act. Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas has introduced his OPT, stands for Optional Practical Training, FAIRtax Act to correct what he believes is a bias that encourages employers to hire foreign students on student visas instead of U.S. citizens. The OPT allows foreign students attending a U.S. education facility to work in the U.S. in a job directly related to their major area of study. Now, under present law, employers and foreign students hired through the OPT program are not required to pay the 7.65% federal Social Security payroll tax that American workers are subject to. Now, this obviously creates a huge incentive for employers to go with the foreign students over American citizens by making the students significantly less expensive to hire. Senator Cotton rightfully sees that as a problem, and his bill is meant to correct this. Perhaps the logic for exempting these foreign students was that since their employment was normally only for 1 to 3 years, these students would return home and never be entitled to any retirement benefits from Social Security. In conclusion, it's a good bet that most people have never heard of this little exemption that discriminates against American citizens because it's buried deep in the Internal Revenue Code. So, Mr. President and members of Congress, we the people have to ask you this question. How many more of these types of benefits are hidden in the Internal Revenue Code? Now, if we had a huge magnifying glass and unlimited time, there's no telling how many more of these things that transfer tax burdens from the special interest to the rest of us that we could find. After all, politicians have been selling tax favors and burying those favors deep in the Internal Revenue Code for decades. If we could ever count them all, the number would stagger the mind. Now, we could demand that these outrages be corrected, and maybe we could embarrass the politicians into repealing these hidden benefits that we discovered. Now, like the balloon that when you push on one side, it will bulge out on the other, this type of graft will not stop as long as there's a place to hide it. Now, there can be no doubt that as long as there's an Internal Revenue Code to bury them in, the Washington politicians will continue to fill their campaign coffers with special interest money by selling these special tax favors. The only way to stop it is to get rid of their hiding place. Now, if there was no alternative to the irrational and unfair income payroll tax system, maybe U.S. citizens would just have to tolerate it for the good of the country. However, there is an alternative, the FAIRtax, a national retail sales tax on new retail goods and retail services. The FAIRtax provides a family credit so that all purchases up to the poverty level for each family are not taxed. There's no withholding from your paycheck, and you never have to file a tax return again telling the government how much you earned and how much you spent. Plus, you will never be harassed by the IRS ever again with the FAIRtax. Now, many of you have labored tirelessly for freedom from the federal income tax and the IRS. You deserve a great deal of credit for your efforts to educate the American people on the need to fund the American government in a way that's good for America and that returns freedom to the American people. It's imperative, though, that we don't replace the current income tax and the IRS with an alternative system that can still be manipulated by the ruling elite. We must let Congress and the President know that the best way to replace the income tax and the IRS is with the FAIRtax. Now, make no mistake about it. The FAIRtax is a grave threat to the ruling elites. It will strip them of their power and their ability to control us through the tax system. Their opposition to the FAIRtax will be fierce and unrelenting, and don't think for an instant they won't use half-truths, deception, and downright lies in their desperate attempt to hang on to their power. However, with the support of this president, we can finally eliminate the income tax and the IRS. Now, of course, the best course of action is not only to repeal the income tax and abolish the IRS, but to repeal the 16th Amendment as well so that no future administration can ever shackle the American people with an income tax again. We must come together and ensure that real tax reform, the FAIRtax, is not subverted by the elites in D.C. This will take the diligent efforts from all of us. We need your financial assistance, and we need your grassroots assistance. Now, if you have contacts that will allow us to get more information about the fair tax to President Trump, please let us know. Also, please email us at info@fairtax.org, and we'll give you some options on how you can best help us. At a minimum, please call your congressional representative and ask if he or she supports the fair tax. If so, thank him or her for their support and suggest they become a co-sponsor of H.R. 25 if they're not one already. If not, ask why not. Now, if your representative claims to be unfamiliar with the fair tax, offer to have someone come to their office and explain it to them. The solution: pass the fair tax. Now, why would D.C. pass the fair tax and give up an almost unlimited source of donations? Well, they won't, at least not voluntarily. The only way they will is if the rest of us demand it. Isn't it time to end this ludicrous tax collection system in the IRS along with it? Help bring about real tax reform and stop future IRS abuses. By contributing, or actually investing, $10.40 a month, you help provide a financial base to Americans for fair taxation. Now, if you can make larger contributions/investments, these will be used not for salaries, as we're all volunteers, but for the needed updates to our economic studies, which will be vital for all future years. Please go to fairtax.org to invest in AFFT and help us pass the fair tax. It's an investment in your and your family's future.
This has been the Weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, President of Americans for Fair Taxation. Check back every week for news and information about the fair tax, and learn why the fair tax should replace our antiquated federal income tax system. If you'd like to receive a copy of the Chairman's Report in your inbox every week, sign up at FAIRtax.org.